Football is full of ghost stories, but few are as colorful as the day when the Irish vanished. Imagine it's 1939. Notre Dame enters the tunnel trailing Iowa in navy blue, but they emerge for the second half in a vibrant green. It was the ultimate halftime switcheroo. Tonight, Timothy B. Brown unearths the wild gamesmanship behind the only mid-game jersey swap in the history of college football. This is the Pigskin Dispatch Podcast, and I'm your host, Darin Hayes. Our guest is Timothy B. Brown of footballarchaeology.com, and Tim's got a great story to tell.
Darin, good to see you again, and I think this should be a colorful episode.
Yeah, I think this will be very colorful for more reasons than one. This story that you wrote, and I'm not sure when you wrote this, then I read it recently, but it just amazed me, and it just puts a little smile on your face and a little bit of awe. And you titled it "The Notre Dame's Halftime Jersey Switcheroo." And what can you tell us about this tale from the past, Tim?
Sure. Yeah, so this goes back to the days when, teams bought one set of, one uniform, one set of jerseys, one pair of pants. Sometimes they'd have two pairs of pants, but they basically had one jersey that they wore all season long. And so, if you were if you wore a navy blue jersey and your opponent had a navy blue jersey, well, that's just what you did. You dealt with it. So navy blue and black, lots of different reds and maroons and, those kinds of colors. And so if you played an opponent, and especially like there were rivalries, like, Colgate Cornell was a big rivalry, but they both had red or maroon, just Army Navy, black and navy blue, and then Notre Dame, navy blue. So anyways, eventually people realized that was kind of dumb. And so the first thing that I found where, I'm sure there were some places where somebody changed the jersey, but mostly one of the first steps they did was actually Cornell. They started wearing, what we think of now as practice jerseys, like every high school or whatever, they've got, white jerseys, yellow jerseys, red jerseys that you slip over your jersey and shoulder pad.
The pennies you're talking.
Yeah, the pennies. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's different, there's all kinds of different names for them, but so Cornell would put those on when they were going to play a team that also wore red jerseys. So if you look back at their yearbooks from that era, that's what they've got going on. And then there were other teams that they might have a second jersey, like their secondary color. If they were black and gold, if they normally wore black, but they were meeting another team with the dark jersey, they might wear a gold jersey for that game. And there were even instances of schools that they borrow the local high school's jerseys. Wouldn't have anything to do color-wise with their team, but it was just a way to not spend the money on new jerseys, and yet you get to, differentiate yourself from the opponent. So, Notre Dame, wore dark blue jerseys, and but sometimes they'd wear green. So in 1926, they played Penn State, they wore green. 27, they played Army, they wore green. 28, they played Navy, they wore green. And in that game, everybody was hacked off because they didn't order them in time to get all the numbers, the same numbers on the jerseys. So the numbers in the program didn't correspond to the numbers that the guys wore on the field. Who knows? That may have been a little gamesmanship too, but the story was it was innocent. So anyways, so Notre Dame had a tradition of sometimes wearing green. And then in 1939, they were playing Elmer Layden, one of the Four Horsemen. He was the coach. And they're playing Iowa, who at the time had Neil Kinnock as their, or Niall Kinnock as their, star running back. So Iowa had black jerseys, Notre Dame had navy blue, and it's a scoreless tie till late in the first half. And then Notre Dame threw an interception like inside their own 10. And a couple plays later, Kinnock scores. So, and they convert, so it's 7-0. They go into for halftime, and in the second half, Notre Dame comes out wearing green jerseys with, it was an old style, but the colors of the shoulder pads were different, right? And in this case, it was green and then gold shoulder pads or yellow shoulder pads. And, it didn't really help them too much because it wasn't until the fourth quarter that they finally scored, and then they failed on the conversion. So they ended up losing the game 7-6. But it's just one of those things. It's the only story I've come across of a team switching jerseys at halftime. Now Notre Dame would come out. There's different times where they came out in practice pregame, wearing their navy blue, and then they come out at the start of the first half wearing green jerseys, and that was a big psych up thing. But this is the only story I've come across where somebody switched at halftime. But then of course, since it became sensible that in 1949 the NCAA said the home team is responsible for making sure that the two teams wear contrasting colored jerseys. So since the home team was at home and presumably had access to two different colored jerseys, that's what they did. And then here's a question for you. When do you think the NCAA required teams to, we then went to the home and away, system with the away team wearing a lighter jersey than the home team? When do you think that changed officially from an NCAA standpoint?
If I'm not mistaken, I think it might have been the early 70s.
Yeah, it was 83.
83. Oh, wow. Okay. Even more recent than I thought. Okay.
Yeah. And the funny thing was, that was driven by television. They first did it because while you could tell, green and blue apart in a stadium, you couldn't tell those two apart on a black and white television. So television is what drove the move to the white away jerseys. But it's one of those things that the pros did that. And then basically everybody went that way. And even though it wasn't required. So high schools, we had home and away jerseys in high school. We certainly weren't on television, right? And, every college, went that direction. So it's just one of those funny things that, people mirror what the highest level are doing, even though the actual functional reason for them doing it doesn't apply at the lower levels.
Yeah, this story and a lot of these little side stories that you're saying, it really hits home with me because little does anybody know, I was part of a game that the National Federation, who does most of the high school, the states are in to play high school football, go by the NFHS, changed their rule on this, the jerseys for home and away teams. About 20 years ago, it used to say the home teams would wear darks and the away team would wear a contrasting color, lighter color. It was something like that. It didn't say the word white in it. So we had the biggest rivalry here in Erie. The two major prominent big schools play every year, the first Friday in October. It's a breast cancer awareness benefit, and it packs the stadium, whether it's the one school or the other school stadium. They have the home and home every other year. And so the home team was wearing their dark blue jerseys, white pants, warming up, and they go in, the locker room, 7 minutes before kickoff, and they usually come out 3 minutes before. Well, they came out wearing all gray. The visiting team was wearing all white, and they both one had black helmets, one had dark blue helmets. So they came out, and I'm going, oh shit. And both of the coaches are my age. So one was a grade behind me at the high school I went to, and the other one was a rival high school, but I played, softball and stuff with this guy for years. So I knew them both very well. So I'm kind of in a pickle. I'm the referee. I'm the guy that's going to make the decision. So I'm going, okay, I'm not, and I know they did it to get each other. Well, the guy to change the jerseys to get the other guy's goat. But he's wearing light gray as his home thing. So I'm like, oh my God. So I talked to my umpire and I'm like, you know what? I can't, I'm not throwing a flag in this big game to start the game, to change this jersey. Let's see if we can get by. I'd talk to my crew. I said, can we discern which team's which so we don't have, you know, a white jersey foul when it's really light gray? And we figured out we could. So we played the game, didn't throw a flag on it, but it ended up becoming a big thing here in Western Pennsylvania. Went down to the state. I got phone calls and it was just a big mess. I had to go to the school and review film with the coach that did it and why he did it. And he ended up getting fired for it, I guess, because they ended up losing the game. But the National Federation the next year changed it. And I believe it probably had something to do with it. They changed the wording to the away team must wear white jersey. So
yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, originally there was an economic reason. You know, people just couldn't afford. You know, they were lucky to have everybody wearing the same color jersey, and so to have two, you had to be a pretty big program to really make that pay. But you know, now you just can't even imagine, like, you know, little league, you know, travel type stuff. Everybody's fully kitted out, and you know.
We're lucky if a home team wears the same jersey twice in a season. You know, now they have a jersey for every game. It seems like it's crazy.
Well, not in Pennsylvania. They don't understand the times have changed there.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. Yeah, we have Penn State as our modern schools. They just wear all white with white helmets. You know, it's most boring uniform in the world. But yeah, that's what we like here.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But yeah, that's good stuff, man. I can't imagine what I would have done if a team would have changed at halftime, though. That's just sort of blows my mind. And that's a game, definitely gamemanship. You're trying to get the other team getting their heads a little bit. It works people up.
Yeah, well, they still lost. So
right. And so did the one that I was talking about that I had. That team lost too. So just crazy stuff.
Then Layden later becomes the NFL commissioner, and he's the guy who instituted that you have to wear socks up to your knees. So.
Right.
Hey, he's a big uniform guy.
Which Roselle even kept enforcing while he was still in there. And no writing on the headbands with the.
Well, and now it's going to be an NCAA rule. You got to wear socks up to the knees.
Really? Wow.
I don't like it.
God, their pants are above their knees. They're going to still have.
Well, they're changing that too. That's part of the entire leg has to be covered now.
Really? Okay. Interesting. I didn't hear that one, but we'll have to follow that and have some breaking news this season maybe on that. How that's going on. But Tim, you know, that is just a fascinating story, and you dig deep into your research. You know, the old newspapers, the old books, the old advertising, and you find interesting stories to share with us, which, you know, 50, 60, 100 some years ago were big stories of the day that we've sort of forgotten, and we love to have you doing that. And maybe you could share with folks where they could catch some of these stories that you write.
Sure. Just go to footballarchaeology.com. It's a Substack site. So either subscribe, where every time I create a new story, you'll get an email that, you know, has the story, or you just, you know, bookmark it, come in, visit whenever you want, and, you know, have at it. So.
All right. Well, Tim, we really appreciate you coming on today, and as you do every Tuesday, and we'd love to talk to you again next week.
I'll be here.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.